Senior officials from almost 200 nations approved the draft text of a United Nations climate deal on Saturday after ministers tried to resolve hundreds of points of disagreement. The text lays out options ranging from a long-term goal for slowing climate change to raising climate finance for developing nations that can be resolved by ministers next week at talks lasting until Friday. Greenpeace cautiously welcomed the climate talks draft, saying while ambitious options are included, the goal of 100% renewables by 2050 is still missing.
This text demonstrates the desire shown by everyone to reach an agreement next week. An agreement drafted by all for all. We are not at the end of the road yet. Major political decisions remain to be taken. In the days to come, we'll need all our intelligence, all our energy, all our capacity to compromise, and all our capacity to see into the distance to be able to reach our...
Also on Saturday, United States President Barack Obama called on the Congress to prevent criminals and Americans on the no-fly list from being able to legally purchase guns after a shooting in San Bernardino, California, that killed 14 people on Wednesday.
We know that the killers in San Bernardino used military-style assault weapons, weapons of war, to kill as many people as they could. It's another tragic reminder that here in America, it's way too easy for dangerous people to get their hands on a gun. For example, right now, people on the no-fly list can walk into a store and buy a gun. That's insane. If you're too dangerous to board a plane, you're too dangerous by definition to buy a gun. And so I'm calling on Congress to close this loophole now.
Chinese President Xi Jinping announced that China would be donating $60 billion for developing in Africa during the ceremony of the Forum on Chinese-African Cooperation in Johannesburg, South Africa, Friday. The $6 billion will be used for infrastructural projects in Africa, debt cancellation, and agriculture promotion under a 3-year plan. China promises not to interfere in the internal affairs of African countries. An anti-police brutality march was staged in the neighborhood of Maranhão, Rio de Janeiro, on Thursday after the recent killing of 5 unarmed black youths by police officers. Protesters marched through the streets holding banners and calling for an end to the recent state of violence conducted by the local Rio de Janeiro police, which they fear particularly targets the black population of Brazil.
We're so tired of talking about that every single day. It is really normal that people are accused, especially the black youth, by the police, and nothing happens. It's like it's something that is natural for the Brazilian population.
Martin Sabatella is the chairman of Argentina's Communications and Media Authority. Even though his term in the position expires at the end of 2017, as required by Argentina's broadcast law, President-elect Mauricio Macri has publicly asked him and other state officials in a similar situation to resign or face a challenge from the incoming government to have them removed.
Are hoping for two things.
Caribbean leaders are demanding special recognition for small island states at the Paris climate talks. The leaders say that they are determined to succeed in their quest to obtain a 1.5 degrees Celsius gap on greenhouse gas emissions, and residents of the small islands are following the proceedings closely, hoping for an agreement that will secure the survival of small states. St. Lucia's Prime Minister and led Caribbean Community, CARICOM spokesperson on climate change Dr. Kenny Anthony, addressed the 2 million people of the region ahead of COP21, speaking of the region's unique viabilities to climate change.
The greenhouse gas emissions cuts that have been proposed by the countries in their intended nationally determined contributions, or INDCs, will still result in a 2.7 degrees Celsius warming by the end of the century. For small island developing states like ours, the science has shown that any long-term global temperature increase above 1.5 degrees Celsius would be catastrophic.
On July 15, 2013, the Honduran military forces killed indigenous leader Tomás Garcia of the Council of Indigenous Organizations in Honduras. He was leading a protest against DESA Company, which planned to build a dam in the Galcoe River, which is an important part of the Lenquas culture and life. Those responsible for Garcia's assassination continue free, and the government aims to finish the investigation.
Acompañamiento y la observación,
The
digamos,
compañero Tomas Garcia was assassinated by the Honduran Armed Forces, by members of the Engineer Battalion. In Honduras, there's a transnational dictatorship. There are state terrorism policies against the indigenous and black peoples, against the campesinos and the people of Honduras. And that is part of the logic that also has to do with energy, with the intention to privatize and to give enormous amounts of profits to the great national and transnational
de
capitals.
violaciones de derechos